Bonjour à tous. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's lesson where I'm going to be taking you through the past tense in French. If you want to talk about past events in French, you're going to have to use a tense called the passé composé, otherwise translated in English to the perfect tense. This tense is used to talk about completed actions in the past. For example, in English, we might say, I ran a marathon last week, or yesterday I bought a car. These verbs are used to talk about completed actions in the past and do not refer to what we're currently doing in the present day or what we will do in the future. In French, the passé composé is made up of two parts. I've given you an example here. J'ai mangé un sandwich. I have eaten a sandwich, or I ate a sandwich. So let's have a little look at the two parts in more detail. The first part you might be quite familiar with already, seeing as though it's a very commonly used verb in French and definitely one that you're exposed to at the very beginning of your French learning journey. And this is the verb avoir, which means to have. So let's have a little recap of this verb in full. We have j'ai, I have, tu as, you have, il a, elle a, he or she has, nous avons, we have, vous avez, you all have, ils ont, elles ont, they have, either mixed group or all males, or female group. The second part of this verb is known as the past participle. Now, the past participle is formed using the infinitive, which you know is the original state of the verb. And in French, there are three different groups of infinitives. There are those that end in er, like manger, regarder. There are those that end in ir, like finir or choisir. And there are those that end in re, like vendre or descendre. So to form the past participle, you need to know which category your verb falls into so that you can change it accordingly. So for the ER verbs, we have, for example, manger. You're going to have to take away the ER and add an E accent. So manger, to eat, turns to manger, ate. For IR verbs, similarly, you're going to take away the IR. For example, finir, to finish, will go to fini. You're adding on an I, and it means finished. And for RE verbs, such as vendre, to sell, you've removed the RE and you're going to add a U, vendu, to change it to the past participle, which would be sold. Now, I want to put those two parts of this verb together so you get a better understanding of how it's formed. J'ai regardé here means I have watched or I watched. I've highlighted the two parts of the verb for better understanding. So part one, the correct form of avoir, and part two, the past participle. We also have tu as choisi, which means you have chosen or you chose. And again, split into two parts, the correct form of avoir and the past participle. And finally, nous avons vendu, we have sold or we sold, split into the two parts, the correct form of avoir and the past participle. So now you have a little bit of an understanding of the two different parts. I want us to actually practice putting a verb together ourselves in the past tense. And here at the bottom, I've got this example, he played. Now, in brackets, I've also given you the infinitive, jouer, to play. So this is going to help you when it comes to the past participle. But first of all, we do need to find the correct form of avoir. So I'm going to change over to typing while we do this. So taking a look at the top and the first part, can you identify what form of avoir you might need when we're talking about he? Il a would be correct. Il being the pronoun he, and a being the correct form of avoir for il. So il a is the first part. The second part is changing the main verb jouer into the past participle. So like I said before, you need to be able to identify what group it falls into. And as we can see here, it falls into the ER group. So following suit from above, like manger, we need to remove the ER and we're going to add the E accent. So that's going to change to jouer. So in full, the verb here is il a joué, he played. And again, you have the first part, avoir, second part, past participle. Now, people often wonder when we might use the passé composé, and they can get quite confused because there are a few different past tenses in French. However, one of the most common ways to identify when you're using a passé composé verb is with specific time phrases. And I've given you a few here in the table. For example, hier, yesterday, hier soir, yesterday evening, and so on. So if you see these, then you know that most likely the verb following is going to be a passé composé verb. So I want us to finish this lesson by taking or applying one of these key phrases that are used with the past tense and putting together the verb formation that we have just learnt. So I'm going to swap back over to the typing mode. And here we have, I cooked last night. I've given you the infinitive for to cook, cuisiner, so that can help us identify what category we need for the past participle. But as we have I, we need to start off by forming the correct or choosing, sorry, the correct form of avoir. So if we go back up to the top left-hand side and look at avoir in full, can you have a look at what form of avoir we might need? Correct. J'ai. The je meaning I, and of course, following suit with what is the correct form of avoir, stick it together and it's j'ai. The second part we need to form this verb is the past participle. So cuisiner, a bit like before we did jouer and we saw before with manger, we're going to remove that er and we're going to add the e with the accent. And here we have formed the passé composé. J'ai cuisiné. And finally, we need last night. So we need the specific time reference. And if you look in the table above, we can identify that last night in French is hier soir. So in full, we have got j'ai cuisiné hier soir. I cooked last night, using the first part and the second part of the verb passé composé and using the correct key time phrase. Thank you very much for joining me today. I look forward to practicing this further with you in the lessons to come. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir et bonne journée.